Hey everybody, today I'm going to review the new King Kong movie, Kong, Skull Island. Now, I have always been a fan of King Kong ever since I was a kid. The original King Kong movie back in 1933 was a classic, with amazing special effects and a brilliant story. King Kong became so popular that it spawned a franchise and two remakes. The 1976 remake of King Kong was fun and entertaining, but not as good as the original. Peter Jackson's King Kong remake back in 2005 was amazing, one of the best remakes I had ever seen. It had a wonderful special effects, good story, great acting, very emotional, and in my opinion is the best King Kong movie ever. So I was surprised that they're planning to make another King Kong movie, but this time it's called Skull Island. Originally, I thought it was going to be a prequel, but much to my surprise, I later learned that it is a reboot and it's sharing the same universe with the 2014 Godzilla movie, so that way it is setting up for King Kong to fight Godzilla once again, but this time with a much better effects. And based on the success of Marvel, this new cinematic universe is called Monsterverse. I saw it with my uncle in IMAX 3D, and I think this new King Kong movie is great! A very splendid and enjoyable monster movie, and I am definitely going to tell you why I enjoyed this movie without any spoilers. The story of this film took place in 1973 during Vietnam War and before the events of Godzilla 2014. It starts off where a group of scientists and soldiers team up with a photojournalist and a tracker to go on to a mysterious island called Skull Island. When they arrive there, the soldiers on the helicopters are beginning to drop the bombs on the island until a giant ape called King Kong shows up and attacks the helicopters. After Kong destroyed the helicopters, the group decided that they must team up together to survive and at the same time having to face other dangerous creatures in the island, especially the ones they called skull crawlers. The story of this film was good, but not great. So basically, this film is pretty much like Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now, but with King Kong and all the other fantasy creatures. The special effects in this film are very cool. I really do enjoy the motion capture of King Kong on how he behave and act. Unlike King Kong in both the 1933 original and the 2005 remake, where he walks like a gorilla, King Kong in this film walks in two legs, just like King Kong in the 1976 remake. Plus, this King Kong kind of looks like King Kong in King Kong vs. Godzilla, but looks much better. The CGI creatures like the skull crawlers, the giant spider, those prehistoric flying birds, giant octopus, and those big buffaloes looks very creative, and I really do like the details of their bodies and how they move. The skull crawlers are those reptilian monsters that have two arms and a tail, which I think are the mixture of Otachi from Pacific Rim, the Mosasaurus, and those green beasts from that movie, The Great Wall. Similar to the 1976 remake, there are no dinosaurs in this film, even though there is a skeleton of a triceratop. The landscapes of the island looks very nice to look at. The Skull Islands in this film looks a lot different than the Skull Island in the previous King Kong movie. The helicopters, the Navy ship, and the costume designs definitely fit the mood on the time of the Vietnam War in the 70s. The action scenes in this film are so strong and exciting to look at. I had so much fun seeing King Kong fighting the soldiers, King Kong fight the octopus, the soldiers fighting this giant spider, the flying prehistoric birds, and the skull crawlers, and of course the fight between King Kong and the skull crawlers. The battle between King Kong and the skull crawlers, in my opinion, is the second best King Kong fights after King Kong fought 3 V-Rexes in Peter Jackson's 2005 remake. Now let's get to the acting, directing, and music. Let's start with James Conrad, played by Loki himself, Tom Hiddleston. He did a pretty good job playing that skilled tracker who was a broken but noble former British air captain, served in the Vietnam War with the Australians, and was later hired to lead the group for the expedition in Skull Island. However, in my opinion, while Tom Hiddleston's character in this film was cool, but he's not as quite as strong as Aaron Johnson's character from the 2014 Godzilla movie. Moving on to Mason Weaver, played by Brie Larson, who has been in movies such as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, 21 Jump Street, Room, and she will play Captain Marvel in the new Marvel superhero movie. She did a nice job playing that photojournalist who also joins the group on the expedition in Skull Island. She's so brave, and she knows that King Kong is just an animal who wants to protect his territory. However, she is not as wonderful as Naomi Watts as Andero from the 2005 King Kong, so I prefer Naomi Watts' character than Brie Larson's character. Then there's Colonel Preston Packard, played by Samuel L. Jackson. He's pretty much like Captain Ahab from Moby Dick, who wants revenge on King Kong for killing his soldiers. As for William Renda, played by John Goodman, he did an okay job playing that US government agent who was in charge of the expedition. While John Goodman was a great actor, he's not really that memorable in this film. Also appearing in this film are Hudson Brooks, the young geologist, played by Corey Hawkins, who was best known for playing that rapper Dr. Dre in Straight Outta Compton. San Lin, the young biologist, played by Jian Chuan, who is from The Great Wall. Victor Nieves, played by John Ortiz. Colonel Preston's right-hand man, Jack Chapman, played by Toby Kebbell. Glenn Mills, the young soldier, played by Jason Mitchell, who is also from Straight Outta Compton as the late rapper Eazy-E. Captain Earl Cole, played by Shia Wingham, and another young soldier, Rig, played by Thomas Menn. It's cool to see them in the film, but they don't really have much development. The one who definitely steals the show is Hank Marlowe, played by John C. Reilly. I felt his character Hank was funny, and he spent 28 years stranded on Skull Island since World War II, as well as knowing all the creatures in the island. Jordan Vaughan Roberts did a very splendid job directing this film, especially the way the film looks. The music composed by Henry Jackman sounds very exciting, adventurous, and intense. It's very interesting to hear that song Bad Moon Rising in the film, which was also played in other films like in An American Werewolf in London and Blade, as well as the TV show The Walking Dead. Overall, this is a great monster movie that took place in Vietnam War. It may not be a classic, but in my opinion, this is the third best King Kong movie after the 2005 remake and the original 1933 version. I enjoyed this King Kong movie more than the 1976 remake. The best of the MonsterVerse for me is still Godzilla, the 2014 reboot. If you're a fan of King Kong, definitely go see it. Oh, and be sure to stay after the credits. I will not tell you what happened, but it is leading up to another monster movie. So I give this movie 4 out of 5 nuclear bombs.